Hi, my name is Michelle Lopez with SparklePhotoDesigns.com, and I want to welcome you to my website. Since this is Holy Week, I thought I would share a project with you that I did a little bit over a year ago for my church. The church was in the process of renovating an existing garage behind the church in order to create a little chapel. And they had an altar that had been donated to them by a church on the Gulf Coast, but it needed to be completely refinished. It had been stored for quite some time. Had some water damage, and the surface was completely kind of motley looking. It had cracks in the surface, and so they approached me and asked me if I would be interested in doing this. Um, and since I don't really do refinishing at all. That's not my area of expertise. I was very, very nervous and hesitant about even taking the project on. Um, I mostly do decorative painting and faux finishes. I also do custom finishes on furniture and walls and just about any surface you can imagine. I'll do a finish on, but refinishing was just not something that I typically, or actually not something I'd ever done. So the only thing that kind of piqued my interest about the project was it had a beautiful little dove piece on the front of the altar, and they asked me if I could consider embellishing it in some way. And so I decided that because the church had approached me and asked me for help, and I knew that they were on a limited budget and probably just needed, someone to volunteer to do this, that I was basically being called to do this, and that I, just needed to conquer my fear and get over myself and just say yes. And so that's what I did. It was a very overwhelming project in terms of, it was lots of sanding. I sanded down to, the raw wood, and to where it was all a very smooth surface that could accept this new stain. My husband helped me many hours, because it was just very strenuous work, very difficult, sand everywhere you can imagine. And so we got it down to a point where it could be stained again, and the staining part was not difficult at all. That actually went very well. And then I got to the point where I had to actually, protect the finish. And I used an oil-based top coat, which is something that I probably, after this experience, I probably wouldn't ever do again. I just had all kinds of drips and runs and, sagging, and it just drove me batty. And, I just didn't have any clue what I was doing with it. And I read everything I could get my hands on the internet. But sometimes there's just nothing, experience is the only teacher in this case. And so I got to a point where I actually made a big old gloppy mess on the front of the altar, and I just, I said, oh my gosh, I've got to totally strip the front down, because that's the main focal point that everyone's going to be looking at, and it just can't, it can't look like this. So I did that, and then I totally redid the front. And once again, I really had issues with this oil-based top coat. And so I was in the, process of finishing it, and I kept having drips, and as I finally just called the priest, and I was about ready to just say, I can't do this, you got to get somebody else to finish this. I just, I said, about to throw up my hands. And so he came over and he looked at it with me, and he said, these things that you're pointing out to me that are just glaringly huge, nobody's ever going to be this close to the piece, and they're not going to be looking for these mistakes. So you're fine, the piece is fine, and just proceed. And so I had not slept, and I just was a nervous wreck about it. But I finally just went ahead and finished it, filled in all the cracks, and I got it, the wood part, to a place that it would look acceptable to me. And then I began to work on the little dove piece in the front, which I basically decided, since it was a focal point on the altar, that it would be really beautiful if it were gilded. And I had recently been to a gilding workshop and had some free 24 karat gold that had come with my workshop. So I used that, and it just absolutely made the piece. The little dove, just, I mean, it's very simple, very beautiful, and I don't know, it tops it off perfectly. But the whole point of this is that, I was terrified. I really didn't believe in myself. I had very little faith in my gifts and thought that they were just not enough. And so I decided that I had to conquer that, and that whatever I had, I could give it to God, and I could give it to serve a higher purpose. And I completed it, and now it's a beautiful little piece in a gorgeous chapel that people use every day to go to weekly masses and adoration. And the fact that I was able to get over myself and conquer my fear in order to do something to me that served a higher purpose than just making something pretty, that meant something to me. And so I'm going to share the pictures of the before and after. I don't have the complete before because I just wasn't in the before and after phase at that point. I really wasn't good about taking pictures, I didn't think I was going to have a blog or anything like that. So anyway, you'll see on there a little bit of the transformation. At least you can get the general idea. And I'm just so grateful that I did conquer that fear. And I've been in the process of doing that with many other things lately. And I just have to keep reminding myself that on the other side is something really incredible. If I can overcome the fears that I have inside and give of myself, of my time, my talents, whatever it is that I have inside, instead of burying those talents or working with them and growing them, that's the whole point, is to, work through your flaws and get better. Not being perfectionistic, because that's where I've always fallen down, and given up on things. I was trying to be perfectionistic and not even starting, or just starting and stopping on a project after only a short period of time, because I just knew I couldn't be perfect. And that is a ridiculous way to live. We all have gifts inside of us, talents that have been given to us by God, and to share with the world. And anything else, burying them, not using them, is just, well, it is just not living, and it's not doing what I believe that we're put here on this earth to do, and that is to share ourselves, our time, our talents, our gifts, to help others to overcome their difficulties, to use our experiences to help others. And so I wanted to share this story with you, and if it meant something to you, then maybe leave me a little comment and tell me, how you felt about it. So thank you for coming by, and I hope you'll stick around and read some of my other posts. And I'm just grateful that I have today, and that I've learned that I can overcome anything, any fear, anything, with God's help. Thank you.